Hey guys, so how can I not talk about Chanel's Allure Sport Eau Extreme? It makes so many lists, right? You see it everywhere and it gets raved about, and it deserves a full review. And of course, we have, many full reviews of this, but maybe just to revisit, the fragrance and to ask, whether it's still a good buy. Nowadays, right? Every year we get new fragrances. Some fragrances are timeless and, will always be around and are always worth it. But what about this one, right? Is it still worth it for you to get, this year? And the short answer is yes, right? But many, many caveats. So I'll go through the points that you have to know about this fragrance. So Allure Homme Sport obviously is a flanker to the Allure Homme Sport line, which itself is a flanker to Allure Homme. The original Allure Homme was a 1999 creation by Jack Polge, and then this one, 2012, I believe, right? So fair bit of a gap. This is a very modern fragrance, and the original Allure Homme does have a more classical kind of French perfumery feel. Just from the notes as well, it's a very complex fragrance with many, many notes. Now this one, the first thing to know about it is it's one of the most crowd-pleasing scents out there. And so if you're looking for something that just works and is going to get you lots of compliments and good ladies' reactions, this is an easy choice. If I had to pick one sort of designer fragrance to do it all, right? And if I only had money for one fragrance, designer fragrance ever, this would be right up there in the top picks. And that's because it is both fresh and aromatic, but also creamy at the same time with a little bit of sweetness. So it's got various elements that make this one versatile and also sexy at the same time. Now, the name Extreme, right? So we can't really ignore, the name Eau Extreme. What do they mean by this? If you look at the bottom here, at least my version, right? It's a eau de parfum concentration, right? So it's an eau de parfum. I guess extreme sounds, more extreme, right? But to me, it's extreme in the sense that it's an eau de parfum that really projects, especially, for the first hour, it really projects and is really aromatic, right? Whereas many eau de parfum fragrances sit pretty close to the skin and they don't project like eau de toilettes, right? They don't have that aromatic or airy feel a lot of the time. This one you really smell it, right? And I remember when I put this on, in a Sephora one time and then came out in winter, I could smell it like all over, right? I could tell that it has a sillage like at least this, far out, on the initial spray, right? Not like several hours in. So that's a good thing, right? The main notes in this fragrance are orange, mint, pepper, and tonka bean in the base. And so what you get is, you get a very nice fresh opening and a sporty feel. So even from the opening, this has a very creamy feel to it because of that bass, that heavy bass. And I will say, this is the tonka bean note here is done is used pretty heavily, and it's pretty dominant to the point where once this completely dries down, it will give off a similar feel as something like Versace's Eros, right? Which also has a vanilla tonka bean base. It does, the downside of this fragrance is that after the dry down, it does become more generic and it has that just a creamy sweetness about it that is relatively close to the skin. It doesn't have that magical opening because you lose that orange, you lose that mint. And the pepper that gives it more kick, right? So, again, it just shrinks down. And I personally like fragrances that develop a little bit more. This is a very linear fragrance, but I like fragrances that maybe even improve as it dries down or changes at the very least, right? And many fragrances, designer fragrances, don't, right? They sort of have a great opening, and then it's a little bit downhill from there. Not all, but many. This is the same thing, right? The projection at the opening is great, phenomenal. The sillage, the smell of it in the air is amazing because of that creamy, sweetness and the freshness, like a sporty feel that cuts through the cold even, but it's gonna work in warmer months. But later on, it doesn't have that. Now, I think, to my taste, because the tonka bean is so dominant, it's not like your other freshies. For the high heat, you might have actually better options. Things like Versace's Pour Homme might be more refreshing and fresher for the summer. It's a very creamy scent, so you have to like tonka bean. Now, the other related important thing to know about this fragrance is that it's quite dense. Despite being fresh, it's dense, and that also sort of, I think, reflects the name Extreme. It's extreme in that sense. It's a very dense feeling fragrance, and it's unique for that reason. But again, it's something, because of that density and the sweetness that's dominant, the tonka bean sweetness. It's something that you can get tired of easily wearing if you were to wear it every single day. Now, I did say if I had to pick one, I'd go with this, but it is a very rich scent that I think that if you wore now I don't wear this every day, but if you wore it every day, I would get tired of it because it's quite linear. Comparing it to the original Allure Homme, I think that's a more complex and interesting fragrance. That is more fruity up top, has an interesting peach note, and then it's a little more woody in the base as well. Whereas this is not it's not a woody fragrance. It's an aromatic, sweet scent with the fresh kind of fruit opening, and so it's much more simple, But with the original Allure Homme, that is a bit of a more mature scent. It does have a little bit of an older vibe, where I think it would ideally suit somebody who's around 30. This one, perfect for like the 25 to 30 age group. That's sort of youthful, energetic, professional at the same time, classy. It has all those characteristics. Oh, a really important point that I didn't mention earlier is the price, right? I think this is a great fragrance, but for the money that you're paying, you're not getting so much out of it, in my opinion. I mean, the 100 ml goes for $130, right? And that's quite, an expensive fragrance. You can get many kind of similarly high quality scents for around 60 these days. This is not really discounted. So 130, that puts you almost into niche territory, right? It's a whole lot more expensive than a Mancera fragrance, which has niche quality, like Cedra Boisé, which is $80, right? We're talking $50 more than that. I don't think that the smell justifies that high of a price tag. But if you have the money, it's sort of like, it signifies that you care, right? And you're willing to spend, that money on a fragrance. And so it can be really a good kind of signature fragrance to have, right? If you have a few, something that you can wear all the time and it's an easy reach, right? So if you have if you're not so concerned about money, then definitely I think it's a great choice. Still, it's very modern, very sporty, fresh, and alluring because of the sweetness. But I think it is expensive for the price, for the juice, right, that you're getting. It's a simplistic, linear scent that is, more for your everyday person, right? Rather than your frag heads, right? Your frag heads, who want a more artistic creation would be better off with the original Allure Homme, which is a lot more interesting and complex and develops more. This is more like, if you like Eros, but you want something that's more like signature scent, then you can get this. And something more mature and something more classy, right, than Eros, then this would be a great one. So it's for that sort of younger crowd who want like a sporty, fresh fragrance, right? Yeah, so that's all I got for you. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you next time.